heard me earlier bring up the issue of jurisdiction, and the reason I did is because this case, from the pleadings that I read filed by both parties, it appears to me that the case involves a dispute over where a fence should go. Okay. And if it's a dispute over where a fence should go, that is an issue having to do with real property, with land, and also with the individual's right to use the property that they see fit. This court doesn't have jurisdiction to decide an issue like that involving real property. Also, this court can't use an anti-harassment order proceeding as a substitute to resolve a dispute like that. So rather than delve into this and try to get to your substantive issues, if this is a jurisdictional issue that belongs in a different court, I want to address that first. Okay, so Ms. Monroe, you brought this case, and I take it you brought this case because you want a resolution to this dispute. You heard what I said about what the limits of the court's jurisdiction are. Do you have any response?
I don't have a dispute as to where the property line is. I have spoken with the principal planner for the city of Olympia directly, and she's reviewed specifically where the property line is and advised me from the city's perspective, either of us have the right to put a fence directly on the property line. The harassment comes into place when a reasonable person can see that the white vinyl fence is on the property line. Therefore, there's no legitimate nor lawful purpose for the provost to continue to harass me by a course of action, simply demanding I move it on a continual basis. Removing it themselves is what they did. If I'm home, it doesn't seem that they engaged in doing that when I was home. My concern is continual vandalism to my property when I'm not home. And I feel like putting a protection order in place would require them to no longer move my property, be it the fence in this case, or something else they decide to do in the future, and continue to contact me demanding with the same demand, repeatedly with the same demand.
I'm not sure that's really responsive to my question. I understand you want them to stop bothering you about the fence, okay? But put that all aside for 1 minute, okay? Whether there's any merit to any of that, let's zero in on why we're here and what the jurisdictional issue is. Okay. Now I know you may not think there's a dispute because you think you know where the property line is, and you think that the city of Olympia knows where the property line is. Okay, put that aside too.
Okay.
All right. If you're in any way asking me to decide where the fence can go, you're asking the court to do something beyond its jurisdiction. So I want to make sure that that's, if we're going to spend any time with this, that's not the case.
That is not the case, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Hunt.
Thank you, Your Honor. And that's my impression as well, because they're not neither party's asking to move the fence or just addressing the harassment portion. I believe that district court has the jurisdiction over this matter.
Okay. All right. If that's going to be the case, then this hearing is going to be very limited. I'm not going to hear any evidence about where the fence should go or who's right or who's wrong in placing it or removing it. All right. If there's a dispute over that, where that fence should go and who has the right to the property on either side of that fence, I'm going to stop you, and we're going to focus on issues that the court does have jurisdiction over. Okay. So this happens occasionally. People file a case like this in district court, not understanding that there are jurisdictional limits, only to find out later that there are. And I don't want people to have unrealistic expectations about what the court can do for them. And even if you were to get a final order out of the court, what value it would have in resolving your dispute. Okay. All right. In that case, then I'm going to go ahead and hear the case with the limitations that I just expressed. Keep in mind that everything that's been filed in this case is already part of the record. You don't have to read it or repeat it or anything for it to be part of the evidence that I can use to resolve the case. If you think it's appropriate to draw my attention to an exhibit or a declaration or something from your petition, feel absolutely free to do that. Just tell me by exhibit number where I can find it, and we'll review it from there. All right, Ms. Monroe, go right ahead.
I filed a protection order in regards to anti-harassment that I would like to see granting me a protection order from my neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Prevost. You can see from Exhibit 1, Jeff Prevost has presented a pattern of contact on a first act of harassment that was seriously alarming to me, the petitioner, without legitimate purpose, whereas Mr. Prevost is passive aggressively requiring that I must remove property on my property line. I had reviewed with him in person. You can see that in Exhibit 14, that I would not be moving the fence. Mr. and Mrs. Prevost demanded in person, as seen in Exhibit 14, that I move the fence. I removed myself from that conversation as it seemed to continue to escalate, and I contacted the police department to review that. The Prevost had provided that exhibit. Exhibit 1 and then Exhibit 2, Exhibit 3. Exhibit 3 is yet another pattern of conduct on a second act of harassment in email form, which seriously was alarming to me without legitimate purpose, whereas Mr. Prevost again is demanding that I move my fence. This wasn't from Jennifer Prevost's email, nor was she CC'd in that email. In response to their filing on August 22nd, whereas they are trying to say that I am harassing them, I do not want anything to do with the neighbors. In their response on August 22nd, the Prevost had shared that I was texting Ms. Prevost into the evening hours. My Exhibit 15 is showing a precedence of Jennifer and I texting after 9 p.m. with no concern. It's alarming to me that Mr. Prevost is continuing to email me. Ms. Prevost, not one point directly shared with me that she doesn't want any contact, to please not contact her. However, Exhibit 15 is the last time I reached out to her in any capacity. And in one of the exhibits they presented, Ms. Prevost or Mr. Prevost had mentioned that I sent something with no foundation or basis. I am a domestic violence survivor, and I was very shaken by the behavior and aggressive demeanor of Mr. and Mrs. Prevost in my front yard. I was very shaken and disturbed that they were able to come onto my property and move property. They shared that they did try to get a hold of me. They called me while I was at work, and I was actually in a meeting with my employer. He is willing to testify to that. When I came home to find that my property was damaged, I again felt victimized, as I have in the past, by a partner. And I contacted a neighbor, Ms. Kat Schreibner, across the street to come by, as I was scared and shaken and didn't know if there was a perpetrator on my property. I didn't know exactly what happened. And when Kat Scheibner came across the street to meet with me, look at the property with me, she shared with me, it does look like someone vandalized your property. And as a neighbor and a witness on my behalf, she's on vacation right now. She shared with me that I had her permission to use a video clip where she's stating, yeah, this looks like someone vandalized your property and you should report it to the authorities. It's very disturbing to come home to something like that. I do want to resolve this as amicably as possible. And if that means that we don't have contact, I would appreciate that, because I have been emotionally distraught over this. I'm sitting here shaking in my home. I have concerns about leaving my property. On August 14th, we had our last hearing, and it was pushed out to this date today. On August 15th, I woke up with a cold sore. I had severe anxiety on the night of the 14th. And August 18th, I had to call in sick to work because of the disfigurement and pain of a cold sore on my face brought on by the stress. And again, my employer can attest to that. I did include in my exhibits, Exhibit 18, my cold sore that surfaced. I included Exhibit 19, my time card from work, showing that I stayed home from work specifically because of this cold sore and the pain. I'm not asking them for the $711 that it took for me to install that fence, even though I'm going to have to come out of pocket to repair it and redo it. But I'm simply asking for them to stop harassing me in any capacity. And I'm asking, though that they asked in their paperwork for me to pay their attorney costs, I don't believe that that should be something that goes through either. I think that's all I have to say on the matter. And thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Monroe. And Ms. Monroe, that's all you. If that's all you have, I'll go over and hear from the Prevost. Have you told me everything that you think I need to know to make a decision in this case?
Well, I can say in Exhibit 22, something in the Prevost, reviewing that I'm harassing them or that I'm doing anything to them. I included Exhibit 22 because during this process, I got a piece of mail that was in my mailbox, and it said that it was to Jeff Prevost. So I had taken it out of my mailbox, obviously, to see what it was, and realized, oh gosh, this is from my neighbor. So I immediately turned on my phone and took a video of, okay, just found this mail, it's not mine. Exhibit 22 is a video clip of me walking to the Prevost mailbox to try to put it in their mailbox, and I could not make it easily fit. So I walked up their entry walk from the road and went directly to the porch and placed it next to an Amazon package that was theirs. I am a good neighbor. I also have my previous home that I still own and the neighbor there that can attest to being a great neighbor. I have 2 neighbors there that can attest to that. My current home, the neighbor on the opposite side of the Prevost from my home, we have great communication. He wrote me a letter when I was building my house. He asked if he could put up an 8-foot fence in between our homes. And I said, sure, let me split the cost with you. So my neighbor on that side and we have a great dialogue. He has renters in his home and I have no issue. In my statement, I did share that I don't have time to harass anyone. I work 40 hours a week minimum as a consistent hour or salary job. I have a 6-year-old that is very busy that I keep busy with play dates and school and childcare, but I also sell real estate. So this weekend, though I didn't work, I had 2 open houses, an open house Saturday, an open house Sunday. I keep myself very busy, and separately, I personally have 3 rentals. I don't have time to harass these people. I don't want to, there's just, to attest to my character, I will say that I noted in my response that I filed last week on Thursday, the CEO of the South Puget Sound Habitat for Humanity, Carly Kogan, personally invited me to be on the board for South Puget Sound Habitat for Humanity. They don't just randomly invite people to do that. The PTA for my son's school, every time I see the PTA members, they're like, when are you going to join? We're so excited you're here. Please join us. Additionally, in what I filed to you, Ms. Prevost personally shared with me on June 13th that she was part of the PTA. She housed a PTA meeting at her house, and she—
Ms. Monroe, I'm going to stop you there, just because I think this is going afield into material that's not relevant to help me decide the issues in your case.
Okay.
I'm sure you've got a lot of great activities going on, but those things are not central to resolving this dispute. So let's bring the focus a little bit tighter. And if there is anything else, by all means, tell me. Otherwise, I'll let the Prevosts have their turn.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm just trying to attest to my character now with the Prevost response and trying to suggest that I'm harassing them in any way. It's completely unfounded, and I think it's just another tactic. I just feel like I'm completely at a loss for what has happened and the demeanor and presentation from the Prevosts. I want nothing to do with them, and I don't want any contact from them. And I think that can sum up everything I've shared. You have the exhibits, you have what I filed. So thank you for your time.
Okay. All right, Ms. Hunt, you want to present the Prevost response?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. First, I would like to address the exhibits that the petitioner noted. Anything that she filed Thursday, I was not served a copy of. I have not seen them. I don't know beyond what she just testified to as what's in those exhibits. I would request that the court not consider those, considering that I haven't seen them. Further, that we would ask you to exclude any testimony about her employer and what her employer has to say, since they're not here to testify, as well as the neighbors, just reiterating that I hadn't received any of that information prior to coming into court today. As for our response, as I would rely on the background and the declarations that have already been filed for Mr. and Mrs. Prevost's official statements to the court. First, I would be requesting that you realign the parties pursuant to RCW 7-105-210. The court in its discretion can realign the parties where they find that harassment is occurring, and we believe that that is happening here today. Based on Ms. Monroe's own statements and actions, her actions towards the Prevosts have been knowing and willful, and they alarmed and annoyed the Prevosts without a legitimate and lawful purpose. The Prevost repeatedly asked Ms. Monroe to communicate with them regarding the location and status of the fence over email, to which Ms. Monroe agreed with them, and then violated that by coming over to their home. When she did so, she came over unannounced and uninvited. And also of note, this happened the day after that Ms. Monroe called law enforcement and reported that there was a malicious mischief regarding the whole issue with the fence. However, there was not any identifiable damage done to the fence. And so the Prevost took that to be both an annoyance and alarmed them that she would so quickly call law enforcement when they believed that the issue had been tabled for the weekend. And then Ms. Monroe continued to violate the mutually agreed upon boundary that was set between the parties of communicating via email, as to continue to text Ms. Prevost late into the evening. She continues to contact them via email and come over to their home. And then when she did finally say, "I don't wish there to be any contact," this was after the majority of the contact between the parties had already taken place under one of the course of conduct factors. And so based on all of that information, the Prevosts are fearful of what would happen between the parties should there not be an order in their favor protecting them from Ms. Monroe, because she continues to violate the mutually agreed upon boundaries and cause them emotional distress, as they've had to hire counsel and take time out of their days to defend against what would be considered a baseless claim. And then second, if the court is unwilling to realign the parties, the Prevost would ask that you dismiss this petition, as they've not been unlawfully harassing Ms. Monroe. The RCW requires there to be a course of conduct, as I'm sure you're well aware, and the Prevosts have not engaged in one instance, let alone more than one instance of unlawful harassment. The Prevosts initiated contact when it was only necessary to resolve the issue of the fence. When they were told, "Hey, I'd like to contact you via email. I would like this contact to be not face-to-face," they complied. They sent emails. They complied with the mutual agreement. And I already noted that there was not clear notice given by Ms. Monroe that she wanted to stop contact. And by the time that there was clear notice done, the majority of the contact between the parties had already taken place. And then several hours later was when Ms. Monroe filed the temporary protection order. And so there was no time elapsing between when Ms. Monroe gave the notice, "Hey, leave me alone, I don't want contact," to when the petition was filed. And then third, nothing in the Prevost conduct has been designed to alarm or annoy or harass Ms. Monroe. They simply wanted to resolve the issue and the issue of the fence. And so they were working amicably. They believe obviously it's in a different location than Ms. Monroe. They made those statements, and nothing in their contact with Ms. Monroe has been designed to be harassing. They just wanted to resolve the issue. And further, the fourth factor that the court should be weighing in terms of the course of conduct, I don't believe is relevant to these parties, as neither one has a statutory authority that they would be acting under. And so based on that, just reiterating, it would be their request that you realign the parties and award an order protecting them against Ms. Monroe. And if there's no realignment, that you would dismiss Ms. Monroe's petition. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hunt. Okay. Now, as happens, quite often in cases like this, I mean, anti-harassment petitions, there isn't really a resolution here for the parties. And that's, there's a lot of reasons for that. I obviously expressed some of my concerns when you came in the door this morning. But Ms. Monroe, I have to tell you, I don't believe that you've proven that harassment has taken place here. Now, conversely, I also don't believe that you have harassed the Prevost either. There's been an invitation here that the court should realign the parties, and what that would mean is Essentially, it would mean the court would have the ability to issue an order in the other direction if I found harassment in that direction. I don't find harassment in that direction either. And what we have here is we have a dispute, and disputes arise. That's okay. That's a thing that happens in the world. And when people live together in neighborhoods, they're likely to run into disputes occasionally with people they live in proximity with. That's normal life. Okay. The question is, how do people deal with that? Do they deal with it in appropriate, constructive ways that don't result in conflict or harm? Or do they take the bad route? Now, I don't think that Ms. Monroe filing a petition here in court and then the prevost would be in a position to have to defend against it constitutes harassment. That's what the legal system is for. Now, the case may ultimately not have any merit, and that can happen, but that's a way of attempting to resolve a dispute that we encourage. Going to court and resolving things in court with the legal process is to be encouraged rather than self-help. And so I don't think that is a harassing act. So I'm not inclined to realign the parties and do that. Now, as I said in the beginning, I can't resolve the underlying dispute, and that may be something that you're going to have to work on in the future to get to a place where, ultimately you can build a fence, and the fence is there in a spot that everybody's okay with, and it doesn't cause further friction. But I can't do that for you. What I'm going to do is, Ms. Monroe, I'm going to deny your petition for the reason that I don't find by a preponderance of the evidence that you have proven that unlawful harassment has taken place. The acts that the prevosts have done have been consistent with peaceful attempts to resolve a dispute between neighbors. Now, it doesn't mean that at times it wasn't heated. That doesn't mean at times that it wasn't difficult or even annoying to have to deal with, but that doesn't make it harassment. This was not a course of conduct designed to make your life miserable. This was just a response to something that they believe is a wrong perpetrated on them. Is it or not? I don't know, but the resolution of that is being done in a way that is ordinary and normal. I don't find that any of your claims of harm as a result of this are persuasive. I certainly don't find it by a preponderance of the evidence that you've suffered any physical or mental harm as a result of the prevost acts. So that is sort of the legal basis that your petition will be denied. What I will do, though, is that since I can't offer you the resolution in terms of the legal resolution that I think you need, I will suggest this. This kind of dispute comes up, and I see this and similar kinds of things where they're not really a resolution in court in an anti-harassment case, but there needs to be a resolution because you folks need to go home. You need to be able to live peacefully together in the neighborhood. I don't know if you've attempted this, but I will offer that if you reach out to the Thurston County Dispute Resolution Center, they may be in a position to help you mediate a resolution to this dispute. They do this all the time in our community. They help people come together and resolve disputes in a mutually beneficial way that hopefully prevents there being further conflict. If there's a source of conflict and friction between you and it goes unaddressed, it's only probably going to rise up again, or it's going to be worse next time. And I don't want to see anybody back here under worse circumstances. So I'm going to suggest, obviously not require because I can't do that, but I'm going to suggest you may want to reach out to them and they may be able to help you. If not, you have legal options. I'm sure that Ms. Hunt can talk to you, the prevost, about that. So for today, the petition for the anti-harassment order will be denied. Saying your name right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bajakian's here in court, and Mr. Drury is here on behalf of Ms. Drury on Zoom. Okay. All right. So Ms. Bajakian, again, you're the petitioner in this case. That means that you have the burden of proof and you get to go first. So go right ahead.
Your Honor, the past 40 days since I received the temporary protection order have been the only stretch of time while living in my home on Campus Park Drive that I have not been subjected to the verbal and physical harassment of Ms. Drury. Since my first encounter with Ms. Drury, I've been nothing but civil and neighborly. I was met with more and more insults and intimidation tactics by the respondent as outlined in the provided evidence. Coming to court to request a formal protection order was not the first step to try and achieve peace and mediation. Prior to the events of July 14th, I have tried speaking with Drury and her mother, provided her with proper documentation and spoke with her in a neighbor group setting, as well as worked with county resources via the assessor and auditor's office to provide further clarity and resources to the respondent. I am seeking a protection order against Cynthia Drury to avoid further escalation of her continued harassment and threats towards me since moving into my residence. Since moving into my home, interactions with Ms. Drury have escalated from calm and civil conversation to the events of July 14th, where Drury repeatedly hit my vehicle with a pitchfork while I was in it and attempted to forcibly enter my vehicle several times, as shown in the submitted video evidence. Though there is not enough damage to my vehicle to warrant an arrest or fine for vandalism, the events of 14 July have left me in fear for my life and safety in my own home. Drury's violent outbursts are particularly concerning due to their unpredictability and the only constant variable in her harassment being that she only approaches me and speaks to me when my fiance is not home. The definitions of stalking and harassment outlined in attachment A of the petition for protection order applies to the evidence submitted regarding the events of July 14th and Ms. Drury's actions against me, and are the reason I'm here before you today. In addition, the Federal Violence Against Women Act protects against stalking regardless of whether the restrained person is in a domestic relationship with the protected person. According to the Violence Against Women Act, stalking is defined as engaging in a course of conduct at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for his or her safety or the safety of others or suffer substantial emotional distress. Your Honor, I believe that I am a reasonable person, and the events of July 14th have caused me to suffer substantial emotional distress to the extent of having to install security cameras around my home. And the nature of my fiance's work, he is gone for extended periods of time. Over the last month, he was gone for 28 days, and I did not feel safe staying in my home, even with the protection order. And I felt the need to go and visit my family. I didn't even stay in my own home for the last few weeks out of fear for retaliation from Ms. Drury. After reading Ms. Drury and her mother, Ms. Wilson's testimonies, they include several claims against my fiance. I ask that these claims not be referenced in regards to this case, as the protection order is for me and not for him. It has nothing to do with him. Drury claims in her declaration that she does not own a pitchfork and that it is her mother's, but in her supplemental exhibits to declaration on page 17 out of 15, you can see the spading fork. I assume that her denying the pitchfork was just a vocabulary misconception, but she denied that she owned one, and yet she labeled it in her supplemental exhibits to declaration. And in the letter from Valerie Burke that I submitted, she also claims to have seen the pitchfork, or I guess in Ms. Drury's verbiage, the spading fork. Additionally, on page 8 of her supplemental exhibits to declaration, she claims that you can see Ms. Wilson standing behind her Honda van, so she did not back into my car. That photo was taken after the police instructed me to pull my vehicle forward and away from Drury and Wilson. So I would just like to stand by the fact that she did back her vehicle into my car while I was in it, as I was waiting for the police to arrive. I understand that Ms. Drury would like to make this into a parking issue. That is not why I'm here. In my opinion, that is something that the HOA needs to handle. I am asking for legal protection against this woman so she can no longer threaten me and my livelihood.
All right, anything else, Mr. Jenkins?
That's all for now, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Drury, Ms. Drury's response.
Your Honor, am I examining the petitioner or directing the respondent?
I don't think there's any need to cross-examine the petitioner, so if you could just.
Sure. Ms. Drury, did something happen on July 13th of this year that you feel is relevant to this case?
Yes. So on that week, I attended a HOA meeting. I had attended a couple, that was the second one. The petitioner and her and Eston Smith were storing a vehicle on my property, a white Tundra truck in the parking space. And there is a HOA rule against storing vehicles more than 7 days. And so the HOA apparently contacted them, or maybe the landlord, I don't know. But that evening on our video camera, the tundra was driven away. And I
Okay,
don't know, is that
all right. And that was the day before this election.
that was the day before the incident.
How long had this vehicle, and is this vehicle associated with the petitioner?
Well, from what the petitioner, Ashton Smith told us, the petitioner's fiance, is that it belonged to his roommate that's in the military and was out of town, deployed. And so he was, and that he was a roommate.
All right. And how long had that vehicle been parked out front?
They had parked that vehicle there for, at that time, it was close to 2 months.
Had you asked them to move it at all?
We'd asked it several times. We asked them to move the vehicle.
And is that your private property there?
That is our private property.
Okay. And what was the response to asking them to move that vehicle?
The response was that this is public property.
Okay.
And they were going to park there.
Now, the day of this incident, prior to seeing the petitioner, did you have like a farm fork or a spading fork in your hand?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Prior to seeing the petitioner on the 14th, the next day, did you have any tools in your hand?
Yeah, so I've been out there at least three times with the spading fork. It has very stiff spines. And I was trying to locate the property markers way back on like May 11th or something like that. I was trying to locate it, so I dug a little ditch along the property line to try and find it. I went down 2 or 3 inches. It was really hard. Glacial till, and I couldn't get down. I couldn't find the marker, so I thought, well, maybe it's not there.
Okay. But was that fork was the reason you had that that tool to do anything other than dig?
No, that's what it's a garden tool.
Okay. Now, can you just briefly walk me through what happened when the petitioner arrived that day?
So on the 14th, I was on the opposite corner of my property, digging with the spading fork, trying to locate the other property boundary because her car had always been parked over the other property boundary. And so I was able to locate that, and I was digging it out so I could plant an above ground wood stake so that they could see where the property boundary was. And then she pulled in at that side of the alley and drove past me. And so I turned around and watched her, and she pulled into the free space in front of the area where she eventually backed. And so I thought, oh, good, she's going to park there. And then she started backing up. And so when she started backing up and running over the cone that was in the video, then I ran over to her vehicle because I did not want her backing into the area. I was going to go over there and dig up that property boundary next. And so I ran over there with a pitchfork, not thinking anything of it, and stood behind her car so she could not continue to back onto her property. So I stood there for 6 minutes while I told her, this is private property. Please, get off the property. You can drive away. You can go park on your driveway. It's empty. You can pull ahead and park in the free empty spot or go around the corner. She did not want to do any of those. I asked her to get out and look at the property markers. I have them exposed now. She could see them. She did not want to do that.
Did you ever rap on her vehicle with the fork?
No.
Did you ever point this tool at her at all, or use it in an aggressive manner towards her?
No, I never used it in an aggressive manner. I never even thought about it this whole time. I just, even until I walked away, until the cop were coming, I never even thought about it as a weapon.
Okay. What did you do with it, if anything?
So I, at about 6 minutes into the video, right around when my mother walked out. So from the beginning to 6 minutes, I couldn't move from behind the rear of the vehicle because I didn't want her to back up. My mother came out at 6 minutes. The pitchfork at that point was leaning against her Honda, and you can see that in the video.
Against your mother's Honda?
Yes, against the tailgate of my mother's Honda. And so then my mother was there. We talked briefly, and then my mother went inside to get my phone and the keys for the Honda. So that was 3 minutes. So 9 minutes, I'm just standing behind her vehicle, trying to keep her from backing onto my property.
Now, during the video, it appears that there's a free open space in front of the petitioner. Is there any reason you can think of why she wouldn't just pull forward into a free space?
Because she wanted to
She wanted,
harass me.
okay. And at that point, she's backed over your cones?
Yeah, she backed right over the cone.
Okay.
And you can see that in the video, in the photo.
And that's the first day after the petitioner had finally moved a vehicle that they'd parked on your property for 2 months?
Yes, when they were forced to move that other vehicle.
Turning to some of these other allegations, petitioner made an allegation that you said something about, her husband, said something negative about her husband. Have you ever insulted her husband or his work or anything like that?
No, I've never insulted either of them, even to my mother in person. I mean, in our private home. I respect military members, and I'm not going to say anything remotely similar to what she is stating.
Okay. And she mentions that apparently ever since she moved in, you've been stalking her. How many conversations have you had with the petitioner over the last 3 months?
I don't even, besides telling her not to park on my private property, I haven't had any conversations with her. And it's always when she's coming on my property to park her vehicle. And, I walked by her house before the incident many times because I walk my dog by there all the time. And I never had conversations with her down there or anything.
Okay. Did the police arrest you during that incident?
No.
Have you ever stepped foot on the petitioner's property?
No, no, never.
Okay.
I walk through the alley on the asphalt and I walk on the sidewalk past her house in front when I'm walking dogs or going to the mailbox. And I do drive by her house in my car because that's how I get to my garage.
Petitioner stated that you watch her on your porch in your petition or in her petition. Is that true? Or do you know what she might be referring to? Or?
No, unless she's, my mother sits back there all the time reading and listening to books. I rarely sit out there. And if I do, I'm reading the newspaper or something on my phone. And I've never sat out there on her porch, on my porch, waiting for her to come home. And
have you ever yelled at her from your porch?
No, I've probably stated that she couldn't park there. That's private property.
And does she do so anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They had no intention of ever not parking there. And they, even if there's free space anywhere else, they always parked on our property.
Okay. I think that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. Okay. And the parties did submit a fairly substantial number of exhibits and supplementals, so I was able to see those and review those too. So they're part of the record and part of the basis for the decision in this case. All right. Now it's always, I think, important to recognize that there's always at least two sides to everything. And when a case comes to court initially in an anti-harassment case, only one side is present, only one side is heard. And that can make a case look one way, but then, when we get to a hearing where the court has opportunity to hear from both parties, then there's usually some further context and a fuller picture kind of emerges as to what the situation is and maybe what the intention of the parties is. And this is clearly one of those cases because, hearing this and reviewing, the petition at face value, I think it looks like a situation where somebody could feel threatened and could feel that, the actions taken by the other party are intended to harass them or scare them or harm them and kind of defy explanation in a way. I mean, that was my reaction to it when I read this. But of course, that's, as I said, one side of the story. Well, there's more to the story. Obviously, there's more context to the situation that the parties live in, and there's more explanation from the respondents, her position as to what these events looked like when they unfolded and what they meant, what her intentions were. So in this situation, although there appears to be a conflict between the parties, it doesn't appear to be a serious one. I mean, obviously the parking issue over, in that area that's depicted in the photographs looks a little tight and looks like it could cause some, frustrations if, Ms. Drury feels that, Ms. Bajakian's parking on property that belongs to her. She can get frustrated about that. And she obviously was frustrated about that because she was out there trying to dig up old property markers to try to enhance her position and her communication that was her property and that she had the right to exclude others from parking there, which, if it is her property, she does have that right. So I think that, and then also Ms. Drury's explanation in her testimony and in her declaration as to what the meaning was of the pitchfork or the spading fork and what she was doing with it alleviates, I guess, what would be my initial concerns, because she appears to have had that thing out in order to dig up those property markers and to explain, I guess, or to emphasize her position that the property belonged to her. And it was in her possession at the time she confronted Ms. Bajakian about her parking, but it doesn't appear to me that she intended to offer the use of the spading fork or pitchfork or whatever it is as a weapon or as in and of itself a way to intimidate Ms. Bajakian. Although it appears that it had an effect on her. I mean, I think her reaction to that in context was probably something a normal person would react to. And, it's not every day that somebody comes up to the side of your car and they have a pitchfork or a spading fork there. And clearly there was some anger expressed. Certainly could have been taken that way. But in my view here, in the context of all the evidence in the file, the exhibits, the photographs, the declarations, testimony of the parties here today, I'm not convinced that unlawful harassment has taken place. I think that initial appearances have been adequately addressed. I don't think that there's going to be any further problems here. I think the parties are completely able to avoid any further confrontations or any other issues. And it seems to me that the parking issue is relatively easily sorted out with a clear understanding of where vehicles can be, especially if they encroach on somebody else's property. So I'm going to find that unlawful harassment has not taken place in the context overall. It certainly hasn't been proved by a preponderance of the evidence. I hope that this means that the conflict is behind you and that there won't be any further need for either party to come to court now that we all understand what's really going on here. Issued an order to the effect of what I just stated, which is to deny the petition for a full anti-harassment order. Okay. All right. And Ms. Jones, you're the petitioner here, so you get to go first. Go right ahead.
I just want to first say that I do have the proof of service, but I'm too paranoid and too afraid. Actually, it's that I'm afraid to go out of my house, and I haven't left my house since the day that I filed this. And so I haven't even gone to take my trash out. I've had my sister stop by to take my trash out and stuff. So I never went to drop this off at the courthouse because I don't feel safe going out of my house at all. So
no, that's why I asked the Waltzes if they had received it, because I noticed that they were here, and so I assumed they knew about it somehow. So they obviously confirmed that for us that they know. So yeah, you can go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing up the anti-harassment or the no contact order is because I don't know how to say this. I'm like really nervous right now. So starting back in April and so forth, I started having accusations brought up against me about different types of things going on in my apartment, and I've opened my door and I've offered to let people come in to check my home and do whatever. And ever since the management came in and did a supposed annual inspection on my apartment, several tenants have came to me and told me that they were informed by either
well, mostly Debbie or Deborah, that that I was manufacturing methamphetamines out of my bathroom. And even after maintenance came in and said there's no such thing going on, she still proceeded to tell people that. And she keeps telling people that she has some machine, and she might not, I don't really know, and it's none of my business, but she keeps saying that all these smells are coming out of my house and everything. I've stopped using bleach in my house now because she said that she has problems with the smell of bleach. I quit using certain types of flea medication for my cats. I've stopped using anything and everything I can think of and trying to go in totally natural products. And now it's one thing after another after another. I don't feel safe going out of my apartment at all anymore, because not only am I being harassed by them, but I'm also being harassed by other tenants in the apartment complex. Accusations keep coming up about me that aren't true. I've been threatened, not by Deborah or by Robert, but I've been threatened by other tenants in the apartment complex because of what Deborah and Robert have said to them. I now have a neighbor above me that keeps all night long stomping. And in the last 3 or 4 days, I think I've only gotten probably about 5 or 6 hours to sleep. They took pictures of me out by my deck saying that I was watching kids and stuff, and that I was watching kids and taking videos and pictures of children in the pool area that I wasn't doing. If I take any pictures on my patio, I'm taking pictures of my cat, which is my emotional support animal, and that's it. I just, I don't go out on my balcony anymore. I don't do anything anymore. Before, in 2016, I was a victim of a robbery and I was held at gunpoint. And so since then, I've been very afraid for people to know anything about me. I've kept my personal issues, my personal life private. And I'm just like afraid to go out of my apartment now because of all the lies and the accusations that have came across. And I mean, I'm even going as far as to try to find a new place to live. And I just want them to leave me alone and to stop the harassment. That's it. That's all I want them to do, is just to leave me alone. And I can't even get that. I can't get anything. I mean, and it's driving me insane. I mean, I'm not trying to be like over traumatizing or anything, but I don't even feel safe going out of my own apartment anymore because of all the harassment I'm getting from them or from other tenants, from the accusations they've been saying and stuff. That's pretty much it.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, Ms. Jones.
Yeah.
Just for clarity here, you say, I've heard clearly you say that, they harassed you and they said things about you to others. And I'm not clear when you say that they harassed you, what it is they said or did that you feel is harassing. So when you look at the petition that you filed and it asks you the question, what did the other party say or do that makes you feel like you were harassed? Can you tell me don't tell me they harassed me, but tell me what it is they said or did that constitutes that harassment?
So every single time I kept getting text messages from Debbie saying, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this up in your apartment? Which she is saying that I'm manufacturing methamphetamines, and that's what she's talking about. And she's saying that, why don't I have any respect for other people? Or don't I understand that from my carelessness or my selfishness or whatever, that I was going to make 12 families homeless and that I should feel ashamed of myself. And it's nonstop. And I mean, it came down to the point where it came down to the point where every single thing I was doing in my apartment, she would come up to my apartment door and bang on my apartment door and demand to know what was going on in my apartment at the time. And at the time I was bathing my cat. I was giving her a flea bath like I normally give her every 2 weeks. And she demanded to know what was going on in my apartment. And I said, come in. And then she just yelled and screamed at me and then stormed back downstairs. Or she's sent me messages after messages after messages telling me that I should feel ashamed of myself and that I should be embarrassed and that And then the other thing is that they sit downstairs, and I don't care wherever they sit, they can sit wherever they want, but they sit there and they continuously harass me about things like, what are you doing up there? Who are you talking to? Blah, blah, blah. And it's whatever goes on in my apartment is my personal business. And as long as I'm not doing anything illegal, I don't understand why people have to ask me constantly, what am I doing in my apartment? It's like I keep my shades closed, and it's because the medication I take right now, I'm not supposed to be in the direct sunlight at all. And so I keep my mini blinds closed and stuff. And she told me that I needed to open them up so more people can see inside my apartment, and that's what I needed to do. Why should I have to open I feel like I'm being harassed, and everything I do, I have to explain myself to them. And I don't feel that I should have to. And then she says that she uses a machine and comes up to my door, my windows, and like every single day, like 3 or 4 times a day, she comes up to my apartment and uses some machine, and it keeps saying that there's formaldehyde coming out of my apartment. And I don't even understand where formaldehyde's coming from at all. I mean, I don't really know. There's like and then the accusations about my ex current, I don't know, between me and Patrick, she keeps accusing him of coming in and being in my home when I'm not here. Well, actually, in all honesty, he's not allowed in my home when I'm not here. Nobody is allowed in my home when I'm not here. At all. At all. I don't trust anybody being in my home alone. At all. I never will, because of my service animal or my emotional support animal and how worried I am about her. I don't trust anybody, not even my family members, to be in my home alone. So, I mean, he doesn't stay in my home. Nobody does, but.
Thanks for answering that for me. So yeah, I think I understand, a little bit better, maybe with a little bit more clarity, what you're saying they're doing that's harassing you. So I know I kind of jumped in there and asked you a question and may have derailed you a little bit from your train of thought, but was there anything else that you need to tell me before I hear from the Waltzes?
No, and well, besides the fact that I'm trying to find a new place to live so that I don't bother them anymore, I just want them to quit harassing me until I find another place. I've been searching. I've already started packing. I just want them to leave me alone. That's it. That's all I'm asking for, them to leave me alone. And even though they say they will, they won't.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones. All right, let me then hear from the Waltzes, and as between the two of you, I guess you can decide which one he is going to go first.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll go ahead and go. First of all, I wanted to address the allegations, which you have a copy of the response that we gave. The first thing that she talks about us telling lies about her, we have not talked to any of our neighbors about her. We don't believe in doing that. We're good tenants. We believe in being nice to good neighbors. When I talk to people, when I talk to my neighbors especially, the only thing I've ever said to my neighbors is, how are you doing? How's your day? Just like a good neighbor would. I walk up to one of my neighbors and we talked about music. Another one, we talked about our mutual interest in being in the military. Every time that we do that, she thinks we're talking about her. And that's what the problem is. The problem is it's all in her mind that she thinks that that's what we're doing. It's not us that's doing it. I have never spoken to my neighbors about what's going on upstairs. The only people that we've ever spoken to were the Olympia Police Department and other governmental agencies to solve the issue with what was going on with the chemicals coming down into our apartment. We don't understand what's going on. We just know that there's lots of chemicals coming down. We even went to the apartment manager on the basis of the Olympia Police Department and talked to them about it to find out what we could do about these chemicals that are coming down into our apartment because they affect us. My wife has had major nosebleeds. She gets really ill. I've gotten ill. I've gotten vertigo. The formaldehyde levels sometimes go up really, really high based on the meter that I have that I ordered from a reputable company, Amazon. And this meter actually, when I talked to the Department of Ecology, he actually had me set it so that we could go ahead and make sure the meter was at the right levels at the very beginning, and we got it set. I've seen the levels jump up to 9.5 on the total volatile chemicals when they should be between 0.2 and 0.5. This has been really, really scary. And the only place that I can see that they're coming from is her apartment. Now, I don't know for sure because I don't go up and measure it on her apartment. The only place I've been measuring it is around my apartment. I check around my apartment to see where it's going from. I'm not climbing the balcony. I'm not doing anything like that. Neither one of us are. And that's where all these allegations come from, because of the fact that they're made up in her mind. She thinks that that's what we're doing. In some of the text messages that were going back and forth between Debbie and Becca, those text messages were talking about us talking to another person in our apartment, when my wife was talking to me about an issue with her sister, and the
and we were watching Vin Diesel.
It had nothing to do with her. So that's where all this is coming from. We're concerned that these allegations, we know these allegations are incorrect, and we just want to get everything to stop ourselves.
I'm sorry.
You know, she even came down one day last week and wanted us to stop talking about any allegations. And she showed up at my apartment talking about that. We made sure we were 10 feet away because of the restraining order that's currently in place. And we just want a nice resolution. We want to be good neighbors. We don't want any of this to happen. You know, I just want to be able to live. And it's been really hard to get this to happen. And so we're just trying to survive. Now we're not threatening her. We're not going after her. I have never threatened her with bodily harm. Neither has my wife. We have never gone up to her door and pounded on her door in several occasions that she says so. And if she felt that she was being threatened, like with an assault, in my opinion, where people are threatening her with bodily harm, why aren't there police reports?
And why aren't there any people?
Why wasn't the police called? You know, that's the whole crux of this. She can't tell us which neighbors that we talk to, because we don't talk to many neighbors. I've got a couple of neighbors I've talked to, and again, that's about the military stuff. That's about the music that the one gal was playing. And that was pretty much it. That's all we've ever talked about.
We don't talk about her.
I don't talk about Becca. I don't talk about what's going on in her life. I have no idea what's going on in her life. And honestly, that's not my right to know what's going on in her life and in her apartment. So I don't understand, Your Honor, why we have these allegations or why this came to an anti-harassment order. I'm not harassing her.
We're just trying to figure out what the chemicals are in our apartment.
And my wife is not harassing her. None of her. She's the one that brought up about the fact of, in the text messages about using meth. You know, what do you think I'm using meth? What do you think I'm making it in my apartment? I never said that.
Okay, I understand.
So it's frustrating to us. We don't know what to do.
All right. Yeah, I'm not sure that I have any solutions to offer. I've kind of been trying to get my arms around this, and I guess I don't have any serious concerns that Miss Jones is manufacturing meth in her apartment.
Right.
And I don't think, there's any, I don't think anybody's really saying that. I don't know how the issue of the formaldehyde levels I don't know enough about chemistry or anything, but I understand formaldehyde is present in a lot of things, and that it can, register, and that, it's not particularly safe, but the origin of it, I mean, who knows? I think that issue is kind of a parallel issue that's unrelated to Miss Jones.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So on August 4th, Debbie sent me text message, and it says, and I don't know if these were submitted or not. I don't even know how to. Anyway, it says Patrick visit left me with real pain now, bleeding and swollen. Why do you have to smoke it? Some people drink it in beer or something. The guy needs needs up with no teeth and brain damage, but at least he didn't take everybody to hell with him. I wanted to invite you for a walk, and it goes, the machine records, times, and chemicals. So it's a fact that there is no relief. Last winter, I was so sick, I was contaminated, bleeding, respiratory, heart, liver, and kidney problems. You expect, how can I live through more? And I'm not the one who brought up the fact about manufacturing methamphetamines. They were the ones who told the management. The management came to me about it. And then they said, they went through their walkthrough, and then I went to them and said, what is going on? There is constant one text message after another asking me why we're smoking it in my house, why we're doing drugs in my house, why can't we? I mean, why are we going to blow up the building and make 12 people homeless or kill people? I'm not doing any of it. And the thing is it's not, there has been somebody that threatened me. I don't know who the gentleman is, and I wasn't going to follow behind him at 11:30 at night to find out what apartment he lived in. I went immediately into my apartment and locked my door.
Ms. Jones, I already heard your side. Okay. So we're going to keep going here. I've heard your side. I've heard the Waltz's side. And don't worry, I've also seen all the everybody's exhibits and your petition. So everything's been made known to me as part of this. So as I was saying, I don't think the issue of the measured levels of formaldehyde have anything to do with Ms. Jones. And I don't think that there's any serious allegation that they do, because measuring formaldehyde levels in your apartment isn't going to tell you the origin of any of that, where it's coming from. So I don't think that there's a need to resolve that, and I don't think that it really advances the ball here in determining whether it's appropriate to issue an anti-harassment order. So what I'm going to find is this. I don't find that the Waltzes have engaged in any kind of a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at Ms. Jones. They may have said some unkind things about her. They may have even spread rumors about her, but that isn't anything more serious than neighbors talking about each other. I know that Ms. Jones attributes her fear of leaving her apartment and so forth to the activities of the Waltzes, but I'm not satisfied by preponderance of the evidence that anything that they've said or done justifies that assumption. So I don't find that unlawful harassment has occurred here, and so the petition for anti-harassment order will be denied.
Anti-harassment order.
You did last week.
And that was Wednesday, I think it was. And then when I talked to the court clerk, she said they might not be able to get it delivered over the weekend because the guy delivering them had the next 2 days off.
Yeah, that can happen.
And so she said she didn't know if it would get, served in time for today.
And I don't think it did.
Yes, sir, it did.
Did it? You got it? Okay. So you got it over the weekend?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there had been I think it was after you were in court. Was it 2 weeks ago that you were here?
Yes, sir.
And we extended this. And I think what happened is after Ms. Davidson got served, she came into court and she filed her own petition. And since I saw that that had been filed and this was already on the calendar to just have both matters put on the same calendar, I didn't know if you'd get notice or not because of the time frame, but apparently you did. So
yes,
since everybody is here and we know exactly what everybody is alleging, we can just hear both of these things at the same time and make a decision. Go. Okay, so we'll get started here. This will go a little bit different than what you heard in the last cases. Mr. Mester, I'm going to let you go first. As the original petitioner. And then after that, Ms. Davidson, I'll hear from you. But you can also then bring up the allegations in your petition, and then I'll give Mr. Messner an opportunity to respond to that. Okay, Mr. Messner, go ahead.
Okay. The reason that I filed it was because Ms. Davidson had come into my office to talk about the four-sided inspection that I did about 2 months ago now. I've been in place as the manager officially just over a month and a half, going on my second full month. And part of my job was to do an inspection, and she wanted to talk about it because she didn't understand or couldn't see what was on it. I told her, okay, I would get the original copy so we could look at it. I had a body camera that my management company requires me to wear when I'm out on the property. I reached over and turned it on, and when I did, she, for lack of a better term, snapped and went ballistic. Threw stuff at me, cleared off my desk, grabbed the camera, which she later told the police after I called 911 that she did not grab the camera. Came around the end of my desk and ran into my side and started reaching down trying to pick up papers on the floor. I had pushed back against her and told her she couldn't do that. She needed to get out of my office. That was other tenants' private paperwork, and she was not allowed to look at it. We exchanged a few words as she went out, and I grabbed the phone and called 911 and made a report. Basically, I just want to be able to do my job as the manager. I've been in place, like I said, a month and a half, going on 2 months. I can't fix multiple years of neglect and bad management prior to me in a short amount of time. And her allegations to other tenants is that I'm harassing her. I have not written her any violations. As a matter of fact, she has got the best looking lot in our park. The only thing that I had originally written was there was a question about the gazebo that she put on her deck, and we just needed to talk about that. And at one point, I had advised her to call 811. She was going to plant some stuff in her yard. And I had told her that that's the best way to do it. They've got all the accurate documents. And if you're going to dig, you've got to call them anyway. It's a law. Mine would be a guess to what paperwork I had, because I didn't have a lot of paperwork other than showing where the septic was on her property. I couldn't find electrical or anything like that. It would be a guess on my part. And that puts the property management company I work for at risk. If we guess and she hit something, that's why it's just better to call 811. And again,
Mr. Messner, didn't you tell me, remind me, that besides the incident you just described in your office, that there was another incident?
There was a time she came down my driveway demanding to talk to me. I had just got back from one of my runs moving up from Oregon. And she had made some accusations, and she made the threat. She goes, "Remember, I have a gun and I know how to use it." And other tenants have told me that she told them the same thing.
Do you remember the approximate date of that?
It would have been the last week in July.
Okay.
I had multiple tenants write statements that she had told them that she was going to do bodily harm to me. One lady left me a voice message, but said that she would deny it if I played it because she's afraid of what Miss Davidson would do to her if she found out. And I submitted 2 more statements this morning with the clerks up front when I came in, letters that had come in. I just basically want to be able to do my job as a manager, and I can do that with no contact with her. She can put her rent in the slot in the office. If I have paperwork, I can hang it on her door without involvement, and the RCW requires that I mail it as well.
And if I recall, you also live on the property, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, but not like, this isn't like an apartment situation.
No, it's a mobile home park.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Messner?
Not at the moment, just for when I respond to her.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So Ms. Davidson, you can absolutely respond to those allegations as you see appropriate. And then after you've done that, you can then explain to me the basis that you're asking for an order as well. Okay.
Your Honor, I've lived at the Whispering Woods Trailer Park for about 15, 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
Since the day that I moved in there, the management has not been, you can't work with them. We've got an upper management, Mr. Griffin, that I thought might show up today because I've called him numerous times to find out what my rights and what my rights are and what they're not. As far as Mr. Messner goes, I don't have a beef with him. I told him when he approached me one Sunday and came across the road to my home, and I was walking away from him with my hose because I knew what was going to happen. We've had 4 managers in a year, and none of them will work with the clients, the tenants, including Mr. Messner. He was going to turn the whole trailer park around in about 2 days. And I said, not when your nuts are tied to management. Sorry, but they are. Mr. Griffin is an older gentleman that will not work with anyone. When I came to that park, I came to get away. This has nothing to do with it, but I want you to know why I'm at that trailer park. My son-in-law put a gun to my head twice in 3 months. And I had to get out of the harbor. I lost my husband. And that's a whole nother story. I came because it was secured. It was out in the country. It was quiet, and I thought I could live there peacefully. I just lost my husband after 47 years. From the minute I got into that trailer park, I got nothing but harassed with notes on my doors, my doorknobs, on my car, on my windshield. And it was over just stupid stuff. And I sold real estate long enough to know that I've sold in parks for many, many years. And upper management cannot grandfather some of us in and not grandfather the rest of us in too. And that's all I've come up with. J.D. Mesner and I became instant friends that Sunday morning that he came over to my home. Instant friends. He told me how sincere he was about making our park great. I did not bodily threaten him with a gun or anything else. Not one time. And I did not tell the neighbors that I would take a gun to him or anything else. My children stole all my guns. They're gone. I don't have a gun to my name. Yes, I've thought about getting protection. The only thing I have is pepper spray. It's in my purse right now. But the tenants have no right in this park, Your Honor. None. Every time you go to send paperwork in, it has to go through JD, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But as far as the 811, and he tells me that, oh, get it marked, have them come and mark it. I'm in number 1. I'm first in and first out. I have the main septic system on my property. I have the main power on my property. They come, PSE and them come in on my property anytime they think they can. They move things around. They don't put things back. I get no notice of when they're coming. They've been there at 7:30 in the morning. They've been there at 8 o'clock at night. I pay my rent. I am a good tenant and I pay my rent. I didn't want anything to happen with me and Mr. Mesner, but when I make an appointment to go over to his office and I pull in there and he's got the doors wide open, all propped up, I should have known not to go in there. But I thought we had a better understanding than that. But apparently we didn't, because Mr. Mesner was going to take care of everything in that park and he was going to be the best park manager there ever was. And next thing I know, we're going out to dinner that night, Your Honor. That's how well we hit it off. And then we tried to have consensual sex, but that didn't work over at his apartment because, well, never mind. He couldn't perform. But anyway, that's nothing for you to know or whatever. But I will say that I really liked him and I want to apologize to you personally. I guess we don't have a harassment order yet. I guess I wanted to apologize to you today after listening to this gentleman, this fine gentleman. He's the only court officer I've ever been in front of that's fair. And after listening to all these people in here today, JD, I don't want it. I just want you and I to get along and work together. But your nuts are tied from management, so that makes me want to put my home up for sale and get out of the park, JD. I've never caused problem to anybody there. No one, including you. You're the one that said I threw all your paperwork. I put my hand on your desk right here to hold myself up. And then I did push your paperwork off onto you because your head was in my freaking chest, JD, pushing me.
No, ma'am, it was not.
Yes, it was, and I did not touch you.
Now, Ms. Davidson, obviously this is, you worked up. Let's take a breath.
I'm
here.
sorry. I'm
Just-
sorry.
Everybody take a breath.
I just want things to work out. I'm the same way as that lady on the machine, you know, meth homes and this and that. The park is infested with drugs. There's 60 of us that live in there. And I get picked on over some freaking piece of garbage or some piece of fencing that's out in my yard laying around doing nothing. The lady that wrote me up, all I did was take pictures for evidence, Your Honor. I never went on their property. I never went anywhere. I wanted it in case we had to go to court because I knew this was coming. The tenants have no rights. And JD's hands are tied. He's never going to get anywhere with management. I tried when I first moved in there, sir, and it didn't work. And I will move and get out of there and leave your life. If I'm that much of a miserable person to you,
Yeah,
fine.
Ms. Davidson, kind of focus up here and make your comments to
Okay.
me. All right.
I won't say another word.
Now, it sounds to me like you don't really want an order against Mr. Mesner.
I don't.
Okay.
And I don't think I deserve one against me either. We have to live 50 feet across from each other. Yesterday when he was outside, I had to look at the road instead of looking at my nice yard I've worked so hard on, because he's over there spraying bees with bee spray, telling all the neighbors. And I have heart failure and I have asthma. And all I can do is smell that stuff, even check with anybody that has health problems in the place before he told anybody and went and sprayed it.
So, Messner, I don't think you need to, I don't think you need to respond, because it sounds to me like Miss Davidson doesn't want that order she applied for, so we won't go any further down that road, and I'll just allow her to withdraw that. Okay, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm sorry that there's this much conflict between you. I guess I'm getting the picture that there's quite a lot more going on in terms of the property, and that doesn't really have anything to do with
Ridiculous.
you personally, but it obviously is, it's affecting the quality of life in the Whispering Woods. All right. The question really, this comes down to whether Mr. Messner has proved to me by preponderance of the evidence that there's been this course of conduct done by you, Miss Davidson. And what he tells me and what he testified to is about 2 different incidents that happened. You referenced the one that happened at his desk. And I think you agree that you pushed some stuff onto him, and
I pushed it onto the floor, Your Honor. I didn't push it on him. What I did is I thought if I could get away from him while he's heading towards me, I'd turn around and get in my rig and go. And he said, I'm calling the cops. I said, please, I'll wait in my driveway. And I did.
And then another incident that Mr. Messner describes has to do with a threat. And
what did I do?
Now, Ms. Davidson, hold on. This is where I announce my decision. This is not where we argue. This is not where we fight with each other. Okay, that's not allowed. Now, here's the thing. An order can be issued if I find by preponderance of the evidence that there's been this course of conduct, and I'm concerned that there's a lack of proof. I don't think I can find by preponderance of the evidence based on your testimony, based on Ms. Davidson's response about the issue of this threat, not the first incident, but the second incident that you said was toward the end of July. The evidence is not strong enough on that. And without that, there isn't a course of conduct. And without that, there isn't a basis to issue an order. So I understand what you're telling me. I'm just telling you that I'm not satisfied with the strength of the evidence on that. So unfortunately, what that means is I'm going to have to deny the petition as well. So Ms. Davidson, what that means is that I'm not going to issue an order against you as Mr. Messner has requested. And I explain the reasons for that is the lack of proof. I'm not saying there hasn't been at least one incident, though. And I'm not saying that this resolves things between you. I'm confident, though, that going away from here, there's not going to be further problems. If there are further problems, you know where the courthouse is, and you can come back.
Your Honor, excuse me.
I'm going to hope that there aren't any.
In our little fracas, or whatever you want to call Mr. Messner's in the office,
yes,
I've lost a $7,000 bridge that I'm heading to the dentist as soon as I get done here.
Dental bridge?
Yes, and it fell out in his office, and him and the 3 officers that responded all denied finding it, and I know that my bridge is in there. And that's going to be next. I will bring charges up against that because I need the money for my bridge.
I can't resolve your
Okay.
issue there.
It's all right, I'll do it.
The clerk will make copies of this for you.
Okay.
And I'm going to suggest that you kind of go out of here one at a time and not at the same time. Just
I
keep,
won't.
keep things, keep the temperature down, so to speak. And Ms. Davidson, your petition is withdrawn at your request and dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cynthia, why don't you come up first, get your papers, and then just head on out.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Can I have a handshake?
That's okay,
No,
ma'am.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate the sentiment, but
I
we
appreciate
don't do that.
you. I appreciate you being so honest
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
straightforward. I'm sorry. I am honored to be in front of you.
interest in this.